Hey there, and welcome back to the Adventitious Adventures podcast. A little bit of house cleaning before we get on with the story. As I've always said, this is based on a real-life D&D campaign that my friends and I played, which I then wrote down during session and have put out for everyone to listen to, or you also can read the original episodes on wordpress.com. It's under the same name, Adventitious Adventures, and we have both, our first campaign, which we're going through now. We have our second campaign up there, and hopefully soon we'll have start to have more of our third campaign as well. So if that's something that would interest you to read, you can definitely go and check that out. Also, just thank you for continuing to come by and listen and enjoy this. I hope you're enjoying it, and as this keeps going, these next few episodes and beyond are kind of some of the ones that I thought were super fun, so I'm excited to get into that kind of arc of the story with you guys. With that, last time the party, deciding to follow smoke they had seen in the distance, found themselves in the presence of Marcus, the now leader of a new, more radicalized order of monks. After confronting him about what he is doing, in which he proceeded to make it known he no longer views Inara as highly as he once seemed to, the party heads back on the road. Reaching Wulfwater, they are greeted by the sight of refugees, fleeing the growing conflict in the north. The mayor brings them to a tent, where they find Stephanie and Mitram's sister, who seems to be afflicted by some kind of toxin, aided by magic. Saren is able to help her, and she explains how bad things are becoming. Chop learns that there could be some of her village in the city, and goes off to a nearby tavern, where she finds her father, who tells her their village has been burned to the ground, and the citizens taken. News heavy and tensions high, the party decides they could use just a little bit of respite. But all is not what it seems in the town that night. The story continues in the town of Wulfwater, with the party split and up to their own missions. Inside the tent where they had encountered Mitram's sister and Stephanie, Saren is still resting, trying to recover from healing, while Malvis continues to work on summoning back his familiar. After a little bit more time, he succeeds. However, she does not appear the same way that he remembers. Instead of appearing in the form of a cat, she now seems to be a mixture of an imp and a cat. Malvis, confused and a little scared of this new appearance, asks why she looks so different. She answers that just as Malvis himself has gone through a change, so has she. Malvis goes to answer this, but instead of words, pink bubbles come out of his mouth. He continues to talk, seemingly confused as more bubbles appear. After a moment or two, he is able to once again use regular words, and proceeds to ask his familiar if she still is connected to Ula at all. She assures him that no, they are no longer connected, even replying that she did not like the patron, even before they were rid of her. The familiar asks what the plan is now that they are their own person, and Malvis seems unsure, but answers that he'll probably continue to help Inara to find the symbols. At this, the familiar asks what is going on there, and Malvis tells her that they are just friends before unsummoning her. While this has been going on, Saren has recovered most of his strength and decides that he could really use something to eat. After checking once more on Rin, he goes to leave, but runs into Mitram, who tells him that he is going with Stephanie to check on the news of the invading army. Saren wishes him good luck and assures Mitram that he will tell the rest of the party about where they have gone. Turning once more to the hunt for food, Saren is joined by Malvis, who once more asks Saren about his age, insinuating that he is old. Saren lets Malvis follow him to a nearby tavern, called the Reconsider Tavern, but admits that he thinks he is being more of a nuisance than anything. Meanwhile, inside that same tavern, Inara and Chop have spent the majority of the past time drinking, having a good time, and talking about how men are horrible because they are not clear on their intentions or can change completely. As Saren and Malvis enter, they see the two at the bar, and are currently warning a very happy couple at a nearby table that their love won't last, because the man will eventually break her heart. Coming next to the girls, Malvis answers that the couple's behavior is indeed gross, but blushes as he says so, and purposely looks away from Inara. Saren, seemingly ignoring the commotion the rest of the party is causing, talks to the woman behind the bar, asking to order some food. She takes his order, passing it back to her husband to cook, who in turn starts muttering about the blood moon. Malvis asks what the blood moon is, and the man answers that it is a bad omen. For when the moon turns blood red, things from the darkness will rise up and come for those who do not pay it heed. His wife tells him to go back and make the food, before telling the party not to listen to his ramblings. The party does just this, with Malvis offering to buy Chop and Inara food or more to drink. Chop asks Inara if they can trust him, since he is a man, and she answers that she supposes so, since he is buying them food and drinks. Chop takes this to heart and turns to Malvis, batting her eyes, as she tells him what she would like. Malvis looks horrified at her advances, turning to order the food, while Inara, appearing to be uncomfortable with the development, tells her to stop. She first attempts to give her some advice about men, before then telling her that perhaps she would have better luck if she put more into her appearance. The woman offers to have Inara come with her to a table, where she can make her look beautiful. Having had quite a bit to drink, Inara agrees, but is stopped by Malvis telling her that he does not like the other woman for some reason. She listens to his concerns, which do give her a little bit of pause, but still feeling slightly frustrated, decides to follow the woman. As the woman begins to work on Inara, a large bang is heard from the kitchen, followed by a few more loud noises. Malvis senses familiar into the back to see what is happening, and spies the dwarven man face down on the ground. A moment later the man moves, banging a pan down upon a cockroach skittering across the floor. Just as Malvis recalls his familiar, the door to the kitchen opens as the man comes out with the party's food. He seems to have forgotten Saren's order, however, and disappears once more to the kitchen, before coming back out claiming that he gave him extra protein. Malvis eyes it suspiciously, but Saren seems to not to worry about the claim. The man once more begins to rant about the blood moon, claiming that they should make sure to go to bed early, or at least stay indoors that night. Malvis asks the man about what happened the last time the moon was like this to make him so fearful. The man replies that nothing strange truly happened in this area the last time, but he just has a feeling that something is not quite right. As if in response to this answer, the sound of an explosion echoes through the tavern, coming from outside. A general sense of surprise and fright seems to wash over the patrons, as a moment later another burst sounds out, this time slightly quieter. The party heads over to the windows of the tavern, looking out to see what is making such a noise, and after a moment realize they are hearing fireworks. One of the patrons remarks that it is surely coming from the refugee camp, where the northerners are celebrating being free. No longer worrying about immediate danger, the atmosphere in the tavern returns to that of a jovial nature. The young woman finishes whatever she had been doing to make Inara look different, and it apparently seems to have been quite effective, for she hardly looks like herself. Just as she is about to head back over to the rest of the party, an elven man approaches, offering to buy her a drink. She seems surprised at first that he would be talking to her, but he just laughs and orders some fancy green drink, which is a special of the tavern. He tells her that he supports the North and asks whether she is from the North or the South, before inviting her to come sit with him at the table he had been at. Inara considers the offer, but with a look back at the party, answers that she would rather stay near to her friends. The man doesn't seem to mind Inara wanting to remain where they are, and continues to talk pleasantly with her. He tells her that he is a healer, and asks about herself. She is fairly honest with the man, whether it is from his demeanor or the rounds of drinks, telling him a little of where she came from and her life. However, when he asks what she would do if she could do anything right now, she seems to falter, looking back in the direction of the party with a longing expression. Sensing that she has become uncomfortable for some reason, the man changes the subject, but is cut off by a drunken Chop, who, after realizing Inara is talking to a man, comes over to ask if they are still hating men. Inara replies that not all men are horrible, she is just upset with a select few. Almost as if in response to that, Malvis also comes over, asking who the man Inara is talking to is. He introduces himself as Calvin, and talks to Malvis pleasantly for a moment, before the latter drags Chop away back to where Saren is standing. Inara watches them leave before turning back to Calvin and apologizing for her friends. He brushes it off, but, noticing that Inara once again seems to be slightly upset, bids her goodbye, saying that perhaps they will meet for another drink sometime soon. As Malvis and Chop make their way to where Saren is, they pass by the woman and man who still seem to be very much in love. Malvis decides to play a prank and casts a spell that makes the area around them smell horrible, driving them off before the three of them take over the table. Bidding Kelvin goodbye, Inara joins them, just in time to hear about how a drunken Chop thinks Malvis has a nice backside, and the night wears on. Just as the party seems to be dying down, Inara practically falling asleep at the table, the door to the tavern bursts open. A younger red-headed woman comes rushing inside, pulling the door shut tight behind her. She appears to be very startled, but after a moment seems to relax amongst the warmth of the tavern. Saren asks the young woman if she is all right, and offers her a drink. She takes the offer and says that she seems to have let her nerves get the better of her in the darkened streets. Malvis inquires what she means before inviting her to join them. Introducing herself as Leah, the woman joins the rest of the party, stating that it felt as if she was being followed. As she sits down, Inara announces with a sigh that she is going to go to bed. Saren offers to escort her to the room to make sure that she finds it safely, to which she thanks him, but is adamant that she'll be alright. Soon after she leaves, Chop goes to a bench nearby and proceeds to fall asleep as well. Using the other room's doors as a guide, Inara eventually finds the room that she had rented and goes inside. Just as she is laying down, however, a large gust of wind blows open the windows with a bang. Groaning at the inconvenience, she gets up and goes to close them, half-heartedly noticing how the moon is now shining a red glow over the entire town. It gives everything a strange, eerie feeling, but after the events of the night, Inara does not seem to care very much and lays back down on the bed and falls asleep. Downstairs, Saren and Malvis are still talking with Leah about her experience, hoping to gain some more information. Malvis puts his hand on the woman's discreetly casting charm person. It seems to work, with Leah telling them that it's eerie out there, and whispering that she believes to have seen shadow figures. However, the spell also seems to have worked a little too well, for her focus shifts only to the tiefling, her words laced with flirtation. Either unaffected by her response, or ignoring it, Malvis says nothing to her advances, instead asking what the shadows looked like. Leah answers, now no longer hiding her interest, saying that they were dark and seemed to be gliding across the ground before passing through a wall. Malvis offers up the help of Saren, since he is much more adept at combat than he is, but Leah's response is as if no one else is at the table but the two of them. Back upstairs, Inara is woken by the sound of the windows banging open once more, and a rush of wind hitting her face. Warily, she gets up to close them once more, but as soon as she reaches the window, is caught off guard by a shadowy figure. Using her surprise to its advantage, the figure lunges out, catching Inara by the throat. Feeling her strength leaving her body, Inara tries to fight back against the wraith, but it holds her firm. After a few more attacks against the foe, she is finally able to be released, and quickly moves to the door, stumbling out into the hallway. She flees back downstairs, followed closely by the wraith. Meanwhile, it seems as if Leah has dropped all pretense of asking for help, and has switched to a more active approach of coming on to Malvis, whether that was what was intended or not. Suddenly, the door to the tavern is slammed open by a city guard, demanding to know where the kids have gone. As soon as the words leave the man's mouth, the windows are thrown open by some supernatural force, emitting a sharp breeze that blows the candles out. To the horror of all those still in the tavern, the guard is lifted off his feet as his face and body shrivel up before falling to the ground. From the doorway, more wraiths appear, raising the guard as a specter as they enter. At the intrusion, Malvis and Saren ready themselves for a fight, as the rest of the patrons still in the tavern scatter and hide. They notice Inara come running down the stairs, already looking in terrible shape before the fight begins in earnest. The wraiths attack hard, focusing most of their assault on Inara and a now awoken Chop. Working together to both attack the enemies and heal their friends, the party eventually is able to rid themselves of the wraiths, though the majority of them are beaten up pretty badly. As a calm seems to return to the tavern, the cook approaches, commenting that it seems that those things were sent after the party, as if insinuating they are the ones to have brought them there. Even though the charm person spell is still in effect, Malvis speaks up against the cook's accusation, saying that the evil beings seem to only arrive after Leah entered the tavern. While the party is dealing with the aftermath of their fight, the scene shifts to a hooded figure standing over a crystal ball. With an unhappy tone, the figure mutters, "So they survived. It seems your friends are stronger than we thought," before turning to a chained-up person. Drawing closer, the hooded figure tells the chained person, "Your brother's allies will not stop," before turning to another figure who had been concealed in shadow. The hooded figure commands the other to do what needs to be done, and as the figure steps forward to agree, it is revealed to be the familiar face of Mitram. This was one of those episodes that I still remember playing and how fun it was to this day. I know that sounds kind of sad and whatever, but it was really fun. We had a lot of fun with the, first half of, well, maybe more than half of the episode where we were in this tavern just like dicking around, like not even caring. And it was really fun to just let loose and do that and just have this vendetta against men for some reason. Not quite sure what was going on there, but that is definitely what was going on. It was also a lot of fun with the fight too, because it was not just super easy. And it was hilarious because Chop was drunk the whole time. So we had to like level down or have things against that while we were trying to fight off these things, which it actually made it pretty fun and a little more challenging than it probably should have been. It also was just kind of an interesting time because you start to see these connections between certain people develop even more than they already have. You have this like, friendship developing between, Chop and Inara and those guys too, but you also see this beginning of something between Malvis and Inara as well. And the funny thing is we didn't actually plan that out. It just naturally, that is the way that the story made it seem like we wanted to go. We did eventually talk it out and say this is what we want to do with our characters, but at that time it really wasn't something that we were really focusing on, so it was kind of interesting to see that we came on the same page. So yeah, overall this was just like a fun episode. It, I think, was our Halloween episode for that year. I want to say it was either that one or I think What Happens Next. I'm not completely sure, but I believe that it was. So that made it kind of fun too, kind of eerie and everything. Next time is going to be an interesting episode as well, because we have some fallout from the things that are happening, and you get to see a little bit more of what really was happening besides just these wraiths and some of the things that were happening behind the scenes. And it starts to get a little bit confusing for a little bit of the party, and there's some things that are said, revealed, and talked about that just have some bigger implications going forward. And I think I really like this section of the campaign that we're going into. Actually, I really like this one, and then like right after the the next end of this arc. But those are all like some of my favorite sections of everything, so we can look forward to that. It'll be an exciting time to figure out what's going to happen, because next time there's going to be some fighting between everybody, and we'll see how that goes. But until then, roll well, and I'll see you then.